The Valley Radio Online, the future of community broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Spotlight Shropshire, where we have travelled all the way to Bobington Airport to come and chat with local entrepreneur and the founder of the Mineseeker organisation, Mike Kendrick. Mike Kendrick is Executive Chairman and founder of Mineseeker Operations and the Mineseeker Foundation. He personally recruited eminent patrons including Nelson Mandela, Queen Noor, Sir Richard Branson, Brad Pitt and Lord Attenborough. After forming Lighter Than Air Limited, essentially to commercialise the potential of hot air balloons and airships, he formed the Virgin Airship and Balloon Company in 1988, which became the world's largest aerial advertising agency. Mike was also project director of all of Sir Richard Branson's high-profile world record attempts, and was a director and founder shareholder of several other Virgin companies. He has held a commercial pilot's licence and has held several aviation world records. Reported in both the Birmingham Post and more recently the Daily Mail, Mike has taken a controversial stance and criticised the aid for aid's sake mentality. He has warned that aid often increased the hardship faced by the world's poorest people. Mike is totally in favour of the trade, not aid, and is about to challenge David Cameron and his government, who pledged to increase spending on an international aid by 34%, while cutting budgets at home. Bridgnorth author and journalist Simon W. Golding spoke to Mike at the Mineseeker headquarters, situated in the heart of Bobington Airfield.
One thing I'm interested in, Mike, is how you actually started the Mineseeker Foundation. What sort of kicked it off?
Well, it's Princess Diana, really. You know, she was a friend of Virgin. And at that stage, we were the largest airship or blimp owners in the world. We had about 19 of them, I think. And she was very into demining. We were doing an episode of Baywatch, actually, which is, I don't know whether you remember the programme.
Yes, I certainly can't
recall it. But what we were doing is getting Richard water skiing behind a boat,
yes.
And then picking him up on the airship and towing him by an airship to create a world record for the water skiing on an airship, which wasn't difficult because there wasn't one before. But you know, at Virgin we did whatever we could to raise the awareness and the name, and we created a world record. So I was then actually a week later sitting in my Shropshire home in Bridgnorth, and I was harrowing some fields with some chain harrows, and I thought, I wonder if we could put chain harrows on an airship and drag them over the land and blow up the landmines.
The mines, yes.
Of course, you can't work with a tractor because the tractor gets blown up first, but if an airship is way above it, I reasoned that we could blow them up without damaging the airship. So I took it to the Minister of Defence, actually, and said, what about this? And they said, well, it's a great idea, but a little primitive. We may have something that is a bit more workable from a technical point of view. It's called ultra-wideband synthetic aperture radar. Yeah, that's what it was called. And like you, I didn't know what it meant, but they'd spent 300 million developing it for defence purposes and never used it. And basically, it was a radar that could penetrate the ground and, in theory, find the landmines. So we then used the Ministry of Defence land to try it out in the UK. We sorted an area with landmines above the surface and ran the radar over it in an airship. It had to be an airship because in those days it was a big 400-pound weight of radar, and you needed a vibration-free platform. It's a very sensitive equipment.
And this had never been done before. This was totally revolutionary.
It had never been done before. And so we actually did that and proved that it worked. But of course, what you needed to prove is that it worked on actual landmines buried beneath the surface. So we needed a minefield with known targets so we could compare our results against the known targets. We found one in Kosovo, and we flew the airship all the way down there. They'd just been through a very nasty war, so there was lots of mines about. And we flew over the minefield with the Defence Department, with all the scientists, to test this equipment. We couldn't get the results immediately. We had to bring them back and see what we got. Well, it was a eureka moment because we found every single mine that was buried there. We found.
It was an incredible moment.
It was. So we knew we got something. So I immediately called up Mandela and said, I want to see you and I want to bring the BBC out because we've got something special. So we went to his Cape Town house and recruited him as a patron. And he made a wonderful statement, you know, for everybody, requesting that everybody helps us and support this particular project. Because it's a man-made disaster, this is, and it needs a man-made solution. It's just not going to go away. And it's not like a famine or an act of God or anything like that. This is something that we stuck in the ground to blow people up. And it does. Someone treads on a landmine, well, about every 20 minutes, usually a woman, child. And let me tell you what happens. When you stand on a landmine, there's a huge explosion, and that sends projectiles, shrapnel, which is a part of the mine and a part of your foot, bones from your foot, and hurls them in the air at 400 miles an hour. They enter the body around the groin area, and the pathway of the shrapnel through the body determines whether you live or die. Either way, it's horrific, and it's very painful. They were designed not to kill people, so a lot of people do survive because it's more effective to maim people in a war because it takes medics and lots of people to look after them, but if you kill somebody, they're just dead. So they are designed to maim. And of course what's happened since is that over the years, these areas, and the United Nations reckon there's 800,000 square kilometres of land designated as mined, can't be used for agriculture. You can't grow produce. We all know that the planet is short of food. And even now there's difficulty in this country getting rice. So we need to put that area back. A, to provide planet for the food, but B, to provide work for the people. Because at the moment they're not working. And if they're not working, they're not eating unless we give them food.
And what's the estimation of how many, this problem with the mines, how many are estimated still underneath the ground on the planet?
The estimates of how many landmines beneath the surface vary vastly. The accepted number is about 100 million. And the economics of it are simple to understand. They cost about £10 to dig up, but they cost hundreds of pounds to find, because then you don't know where they are.
Of course.
So the huge expense is finding them. And the terrible thing is that the land designated as mined invariably is not mined at all. Only between 5 and 10% of the land is actually mined. But the process of searching is digging with a bayonet using people, and they have to go over the entire area to make sure it's free. And usually sometimes they go weeks without finding one mine. And I've seen costs of $19 million to find 7 mines. So the amount of money that this is costing is absolutely staggering. And there's more wars going on all the time. There's more going in the ground all the time. They say there's another 2 to 5 million in Iraq.
Even with the treaty, it's still...
Yeah. Oh yes, it still goes on.
And who's, because I believe there's 156 signed the treaty states, but America or certain places not actually joined that treaty, or they're just reluctant?
Yeah, some people decided not to join the treaty. Who knows why, but I think it's probably because if they did join the treaty, they are then responsible for finding the mines, and it's enormously expensive. That's why this technology was so important, because this technology scans the ground up to 4 square kilometres a day. That's 4 million square metres a day, and you know, it can find out where the mines are. More importantly, you can find out where the mines are not, and release the land back.
And release back the land. I mean, I've seen some incredible footage. As Herminio, is it one of them that sticks in my mind? A fantastic, uplifting story. How did you meet him, and how did you become to be in that place, obviously, where you're putting on prosthetic limbs, obviously?
Yes, Herminio he was a little boy that came into one of our clinics in Mozambique. We got a budget to fit 49 legs on people. single and double amputees, above the knee, below the knee, you name it. We get all sorts of victims. We even have people that are blinded because some of the mines are designed not to blow your leg off but to pop in the air and blow your face off. And of course that blinds you and incapacitates you, and you need lots of health care. But Hermione was a boy whose dad brought him in, and his daddy heard about us. We hadn't made him a prosthetic limb, but when he walked in, he'd never walked in his life before because he got his leg blown off by a hand grenade actually. And
how old was he then?
He was one. He was
metre.
just about to walk, but he was crawling when a hand grenade, he touched the hand grenade beneath the surface and off his leg came. So we couldn't resist it. We made him a little tiny prosthetic limb. And these people don't need parallel bars for months. They just strap them on and off they go. And he walked into my arms, took his first steps ever into my arms, and then after an hour he played football with me.
One of the things I know is very important to you, Mike, one of the things you've learned through this whole experience is this aid for aid's sake, this trade rather than aid. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, well, this came back from one of my early discussions with Mandela, actually. You know, he said, if you release the land, you've got a farmer then who can farm, but the problem is he doesn't know how to farm, so because he's lost all his skills. So if you give a landowner a bag of grain, he won't plant it, he'll eat it. And then the following week he'll need some more, and so will his family. And you grow a huge universe of people whose only skill in life is to sit down and wait for food. And it takes away the most basic human primal instinct of man. You know, since time began, we came out of our caves and went hunting for food to provide for our family. That's what we do. That's the instinct of a human being. We've taken that away from them, that fundamental instinct. And that's why I use the sport child analogy, because we've all seen children with very wealthy parents that are no use to man or beast, and they get ruined and are unable to contribute anything. Well, that's what's happened in Africa on a huge scale. We've got millions of people that just need to receive food. So, and the thing is, it doesn't help them. In the end, it kills more people than it saves. So I'm into a program that says we shouldn't give aid, we should give trade, which is again going back to the basic human fundamental instincts, you know, to work and provide food. So we developed an aid-free zone, and if you take our first aid-free zone in Mozambique, is an area of coconut plantation that actually produces about 1.5 billion coconuts a year, but there's nobody there to pick them. So we've set up a factory which is now producing. It's a fully fledged factory, fully operational, that will process the coconuts and turn them into oil, and oil is saleable. But not one penny of aid will go in there. We will attract investors and we'll give them half of the business for the investment. And it's only right that they should make a profit out of it. But profit isn't a dirty word. You know, the creation of money can help people. So that's what we do. We pay the local people to pick the coconuts and bring them to our collection points. And so we pay for them. They are actually in work. So the whole motive is to get people working. If they don't pick the coconuts, they don't get any money. They bring them to us. We buy the coconuts. They then become a family unit with a breadwinner. The average family is like between 8 and 12 in Africa, so they're now feeding 8 to 12 people. We aren't, they are. And we grow it like that. We've worked out that this particular plantation will sustain and keep in work 34,000 people.
That's incredible.
One single plantation. So here we have a plantation which for a very small amount of money will sustain 34,500 people without one penny of aid. That's why I've written to the Prime Minister. And I've actually issued a challenge to the Prime Minister, not received a reply yet. And the challenge is this, Mr. Prime Minister, give me 1/40th of 1% of your aid budget 1/40th of 1%, which is $3 million. And I will challenge you to compare the results with a like 3 million that you spend, because I can save a lot of people with 3 million in the correct way, and give them a profile in life, give them back their dignity, get them working. Nobody should have anything for nothing. It really does not work, and you have to take tough decisions about that. And we do with the amputees as well. If I've got $100,000 to spend on amputees' legs, the sort of decision that I have to make is, well, I can do 5 or 6 double amputees above the knee and get 5 or 6 people working again. But if I turn all those people down and just do below the knee single amputations and prosthetic limbs, one leg below the knee, I can put 200 people back to work. So should I put 5 or 6 or 200 people? It's a question of cost.
Yes.
And it's a horrible decision to have to make, to say to someone, I'm sorry you can't walk, and I'm sorry that I'm not giving you your legs, because if I give you your legs, it will deprive 20 people of legs here. You feel like you're playing God.
Yes.
And you're not, you're playing economics.
Yes, of course. And one of the things that came out in the Birmingham Post article, and also just recently the Daily Mail, you mentioned about, again, going back to this aid, you mentioned Gordon Brown, which I think you crossed swords with him giving. Can you explain about that at all?
Well, yes, of course. After the Live Aid and Make Poverty History, and everybody was trying to get headlines by being seen to be the Good Samaritan, if you like, and Gordon Brown came up with this: I've given $100 million worth of mosquito nets to Africa. So I wrote to him and said, congratulations, you've just killed a lot of people, because here's what happens. One of the few cottage industries left in Africa is making and repairing mosquito nets. Suddenly somebody dumps $100 million worth of product in the market and puts everybody out of work. So there's nobody now repairing mosquito nets, replacing them, because the market's been swamped. You don't have to be clever to work that one out. You really don't. And the way aid goes in, on some occasions anyway, it goes in hard currency. And then it's swapped for local currency. Now that gets a lot of hard currency, like dollars, in a market, and a local currency drops through the floor, and their local currency becomes the value of a Matabele gumbo bead. Totally and absolutely useless, and not used anymore, because everyone's searching for the dollars. We can wreck an economy, and we can put all these people into a poverty trap to which there is no end. And that is what has been happening for the last 50 years. Since we started putting money into Africa alone in the 50s, Roosevelt started it, we have given an estimated $3.25 trillion, that's the West, America and Europe. We've given $3.25 trillion to Africa. Now the average African is exactly twice as poor as he was before we started that. That is a fact. I haven't made that up, that's not my opinion, that's a fact. So it's as plain as daylight that aid does not work. It harms people. We shouldn't be harming people. I don't like killing people. I want to help people. And I want to save the British taxpayer a lot of money being wasted.
What can the average man in the street, average woman, do about this problem? What is your advice to them? What can they actually do themselves?
They need to be very selective about how they give aid. One of the programs that we're doing on the coconut plantation is planting trees. And so we're going to be running an Adopt a Tree program. Now, that Adopt a Tree program, you may think, well, that's giving trees away, but it isn't, because what we should be doing is planting trees, and then those trees will be used to provide work, which the local people will only get if we pay for them, if they pick the coconuts and pay. But it's a very green, carbon neutral effort, because we all know through the South American forestry or deforestry that we're getting rid of all the trees on the planet. So this is a way of expanding the coconut plantations all over the world and actually creating millions of new trees because the planet needs that as well. So it's a double whammy. It's a win, not just a win-win, it's a win-win-win-win.
Yes.
Win for us, win for the British taxpayer, a win for Africa, and a win for the local African people. It's 4 wins. Everybody wins.
Mike Kendrick, thank you very much indeed.
Have I missed anything, Nikki?
I thought it was brilliant. For more information on Mineseeker, please visit www.mineseeker.com.